Okay guys, I'm back. Alright, so we were talking about these two features. Now the other features that we would be saying would be called as root guard. Now usually this root guard can be only enabled on the interface basis. You don't have any global based approach. And what it does, it is going to disables the port from where a superior BPD comes up. So that's the main approach of root guard. What we do, we put that port in root inconsistent port mode. If the port actually receives the superior BPDUs. And obviously the recoveries will be done by the switch itself. You need not do anything, so it recovers automatically if you don't receive the superior BPDU maybe after 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But the thing is that when we will be applying it. So usually we know that we do have a 3-tier architecture approach where we would be seeing on the top we will be having the core layer switches. On the downside we'll be having distribution layer switches, and then downside we will be having the access layer switches. So in more oftenly we do see that the routes will be configured on the core side, and obviously this core switches should send the BPDUs to the southwards. So obviously they should never ever receive the BPDUs in the northwards. So whatever the ports which we have got between core to distribution or distribution to access or even access to the server side, we always apply the root guards on the northbound ports of every switches. That we should never ever receive the superior BPDU from south side. So that's one of the security that we apply on a layer by layer basis, but it will be implemented on every interfaces. So now in that conditions, if I go back again to my topology, so if I implement the root guard over here, and if I send a BPDU, so in spite of if I do have BPD guard disables that port, but this time the port will be put into the root inconsistent port mode. So when we put that things in irreducible state, that interface is never ever available for any kind of data traffic. But when it comes to the root inconsistent port mode, it will be still available for the data traffic. Only the error that we are going to get that port is the root inconsistent port mode. So now in that context, if I go back to VDC number 7, and if I do apply the interface with root guard. So if I go to show run interface Ethernet 4/11, let me first of all disable it. Usually we implement that things with writing command disable over there. I think, yeah, so that would be disable that the command that we have to mention, and so only we will keep on getting the log messages that port is up or port is down. So now if I take a look on show spanning tree for VLAN number 1001, the port must come back if I do apply shut and no shut. So now if I see show spanning tree, that interface is back again. But now if I implement interface Ethernet 4/11, and if I write on spanning tree port, basically it would be guard. Command is guard, and the what guard that I want to implement is the root guard. So we have enabled right just now 4/11 with root guard, and now if I go back again, if I see 1001, the port is still available because I have not sent any superior BPD from there. So now if I go back again to VDC number 6, and if I implement priority with 0, and if I come back again to VDC 7, you can see that the port has been blocked again. So if I see show spanning tree, it's in block status due to the root inconsistent port mode. So if I see show span tree inconsistent ports, that ports are in what? Root inconsistent. And only for which very VLAN? That is only for 1001. So when you really compare with BPD guard disables in spite of what VLAN you are part of. But when it comes to the root guard, we are specifying for what very VLANs or the BPDs that I'm receiving, we are going to disable that port only for that instances. So there's a small differences when it comes to the root guard and BPD guard. And even BPD guard doesn't matter, like whatever the BPDs, I'm going to disable it. Root guard, it must be superior BPD, which can change my root port selections. So any question, guys, at this moment? Any questions? Let me move it. All right, so if there's no any questions, so let me move with the next approach. What's the next thing that we have got? So we had covered BPD guard, root guard. The next one is the loop guard. So what we do get in the loop guards? So usually the loop guards features are going to save us from our layer 2 loops that is being created. And this will come only into the effect whenever the port is moving from blocking status to a designated port status. So the concept is all about like when we move the blocking port to DP port mode, usually at this situation only we are making some decision making, and whatever the port which were blocked, I'm just unblocking it. So there could be possibility that the active port is still available and now you're making the block port to be also available. So when you come with this kind of scenarios, there could be a possibility of loops that you can see. So in these situations, the switches is going to do what? They are going to check whether we are really in the loops. So they are going to send a frame, and if this frame comes back to that very switch, they will come confirm that yes, there's a loops if I'm going to put this port from blocking to DP port modes. So it's the extra provisioning or extra security features that we do apply before making that port from blocking to DP port modes. Okay. Now in this whole situation, how we are going to implement it and how we are going to understand about it. If I take a look on this 3 switches architecture, this switch is right now what? It's a root switch. So obviously these ports will be DP port mode, this would be DP port mode, this will be RP, and this will be RP. Now among this VDC 7 and VDC 8, I guess like on VDC 8 side we had this port as our blocking status, and this port was our DP port mode. Now when we come across with this kind of situation, loop, usually the loop guard features will come into the situations when there is faulty SFPs or there is a faulty cables, or maybe due to some high CP utilizations, the BPD generations is coming into some sort of effects. So there could be 2 reasons to have loops in your layer 2 environment. Now in this whole context, you would be seeing that the BPDs are being generated by these guys, by the root devices, and between VDC 7 and VDC 8, this guy is sending the BPD to him, and VDC 8 is getting the understanding, yes, that I'm keep on receiving the BPD, so that confirms that VDC number 7 is still connected to the root device. But if I stop to get the VDC's BPD, like VDC number 7's BPD, then in that condition VDC 8 will think that VDC 7 is not connected, so I should move from blocking to DP port mode. So this is the way how the things works out. But let it be, we are not able to send the BPD, but still the interfaces are available for the data traffic. So you're basically tweaking, or you're just trying to bluff your spanning tree, or maybe spanning tree process is not working. And when you come across with this kind of situations, ultimately what you're trying to do, your every port is now available for data traffic, and you can come across with some sort of loop conditions. So now we are trying to track down that particular situations only where we will be not able to get the BP dues, and then the blocking status will move to DP status. But now, if let it be, if I do have port type network which we have implemented yesterday, if I'm not able to send the BP due to him, usually what VDC number 8 is going to do? VDC number 8 is not, it's going to block that port for that very VLANs, because that's not the VLAN that is allowed there. And ultimately, you would be seeing that the ports are not going to come into the loops. So there could be two set of approach of solving this kind of problem. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove that network command yesterday which we have implemented, and in spite of implementing it in that very sense, we will be implementing it through our loop guard features. So you can see the network approach is much easy to understand. Just apply network to every port. You would see that the loop kind of conditions would never ever seen. And even when it comes to the loop guard, we expect that it should be implemented on every port. So here comes the next conditions. The next condition is the loop guard. And where it is being implemented, it is implemented on interface, no doubt about it. What it does, it saves from layer 2 loops. Remember, it is particularly for spanning tree loops. So now when it comes to some threads, so we'll be putting into loop inconsistent port modes, and how we recover it, it again recovers automatically. You need not do anything. So let's try to implement it, guys. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to remove the network types from VDC number 7 and 8. I guess that interface is showed on interface Ethernet 3/13 to 14. We do have network. We'll just remove those configurations. We'll write on no spanning tree port type network. But probably we can just write on normal over here. No spanning tree port type network. So you can see over here the bridge sessions features is ultimately it's going to unblock the ports. And same way I'll do on VDC number 8 side. So I'll go to interface Ethernet 3/15 to 16. I guess that 15 to 16. Oh, I have to switch to that VDC. Switch to VDC 8. Okay, interface Ethernet 3/15 to 16. I'll write a no spanning tree port type network. So that will go to the normal. And obviously you should have port type network from both ends. It's not like that only one side you should have. So that's very important. Okay, so now if I take a look on the status, show spanning tree for VLAN number 1001, you'll see that port is in the blocking status. 15 and 16. I think there's the other port that's coming up as a root port. That's your 15. I'm not 100% sure what happened to 3/27. Right now it is in blocking status. I don't like who is the root. Let me see who is the root in this whole environment. So is this 5548 shows spanning tree for VLAN 1001? No, I guess this is not the root device. The root must be VDC number 7, I guess. If I see show spanning tree for VLAN number 1001, the root is coming from 4/7. I guess like the root has who has become VDC number 6. So let me just remove it so that we can follow the previous topology. So now if I go back again, 1001. If I go back again to VDC number 6, I'm not the root. Root port is coming from 4/12. If I go back to VDC number 7, show spanning tree VLAN number 1001. not that guy. I guess this has conversed over here. Yeah, so this bridge is the root. And in that sense, if I do see VDC number 8, show spanning tree VLAN number 1001, we have 15 and 16 that is in blocking status. So that's fine. Now, what we are going to do, basically to simulate this particular problem, my main approach is that I have to filter the BPDU so that the blocking port must go from blocking to DP. But still remember, whenever we implement BPD filter, it doesn't tell that you have to disable the port from a data flow. So we are just doing some provisioning only and only from spanning tree side. So this is one approach that I'm going to use it, and that also shows that you should not apply BPD filter anywhere in your network. You should only apply BPD filter on the edge of the networks ever. So remember guys, when I implement BPD filter out over here, this port will move to DP port mode. This is already a DP and every port will be now available for the data flows. So you would see that when VDC number 8 is going to flood it, he's going to flood it from here also, he's going to flood it from here also. And which can get a loop kind of conditions. So we'll first of all see the loop environment. What I'm going to do, I'm going to create a SVI just to check the traffic flows between that. So I'll create SVI on VDC number 8 particularly for VLAN number 1001. Okay, and I'll create another SVI for VLAN 1001 from here. So that I'll see the loops. Probably, maybe we can witness, but actually in the Nexus devices there is a backend solutions like control plane policing, which basically resolve this kind of problem, but still you do have the loops in the environment. So I'll go and create on SVI 6. So I'll write on feature interface VLAN 1001. I'll write on the IP address as 100.1.1.6/24 with no shutdown. And similarly, I'll do that things on VDC 8 also. So I'll write on interface VLAN 1001. I'll write on IP address 100.1.1.8/24. No shutdown. Let me take one more session from here. I'll switch to VDC 8 so that I can show you the output. What I'll do, I'll go to VDC number 7 and I'll go to interface Ethernet 3/13 to 14. I'll write on spanning tree BPDU filter and I'm going to enable it. So if I enable it, I'm not able to send the BPDUs. Okay, and now if I go to this device and if I try to ping to 100.1.1.6, I'm not telling that I'm not able to going to reach out over there. We can still reach out there, but there could be a loops that we can face out. So possibilities that we can ping or we can't ping. If I go back, let me double check show IP interface brief out over here. I do have that IP, and similarly on VDC 8 shows spanning tree VLAN 1001. I do have that port right now. From blocking to DP, that has been moved. So I'm just trying to reach out to that IP 100.1.1.6. Let me apply it from VDC number 6 also. Let me ping 100.1.1.8. You can see over here, we are not able to ping because what we have just now done. I think there is some dispute that's going on, and you can see over here there is a MAC move that happened because what I have created, we have created a loop environment in this devices, and we are able to see in every VDCs particularly, but I have enabled the logins only on VDC 7 at this moment. But when the loop has already occurred and when you wish to implement the loop guard, that's not going to work, guys. You have to implement the loop guard feature first, then if the loops comes up, then only it will come into the pictures. Make sense? So what I'll do on VDC number 7, let me go to that interface and let me disable that BP2 filter that I have created. So I'll write on spanning tree BP2 filter, and then I'm going to disable it first. If I disable it, if I'll go back again, it will be put into the blocking status. And if I try to ping now, I should be able to ping at this moment. Maybe we have to troubleshoot somewhere else, like maybe the things have been lost up. Let me see, show IP interface brief. So yeah, so the problem is that we have the duplicate IPs. You can see over here, we have the same subnet IP for two different VLANs. It was accepted, but the last SVI which we have got is still in the protocol down status. So we should have written no interface VLAN number 1. So it's telling that it can't be deleted. So we have to go to interface VLAN number 1 and we have to write a no IP address. And on the interface VLAN number 1001, we have to commit no shutdown. So if I take a look on show IP interface brief, now we would be able to ping to 100.1.1.6, which we can. Alright, so now let's try to implement the loop guards. So when to apply and where to apply loop guards. So loop guards are always applied on the blocked port, because the blocked port is only moving from block status to what? To a DP port modes. So if I come back to the loop guards, I would be telling where to apply. So I would be telling interfaces, but to what interfaces? Block ports. So if I come back on VDC number 8, let me go to interface Ethernet 3/15 to 16. I'll write on spanning tree guard as loop guard. Done. And now if I come back to VDC number 7 and let me keep on sending the traffic, count as unlimited. And if I do enable the BP2 filter, enable it, I should have done login monitor or terminal monitor. And if I see show spanning tree for VLAN number 1001, you'll see that that port has been moved to what? Loop inconsistent port mode. So though it was eligible to be put into DP port mode if I'm not receiving the BPDU, but what this switch has done, he has sent a frame. What he has done, he has sent a frame just to check out that is there any loop or not. So he will flood it, and if there is already a disconnection, obviously the BPDUs will actually stop over here only. But if it is in the loops, so obviously from where anywhere else it will come back to me. And if it comes back to me, I would tell that this is a loop environment. I should not put that port from blocking to DP port mode. So now this is called as loop inconsistent port mode. So you would see that we would be able to send the data traffic, no problem. Only the thing is that we're not coming into the loops conditions. But the same solutions we can even implement with the help of port type network also. So it's going to give you two set of solution. One is loop guard features, because if you don't send BPDU, I would be confirmed that yeah, there could be loops or maybe something. But if I don't receive BPDU, I should not allow that very VLANs. So neither the BPDU nor the data traffic. So ultimately, the loops will be solved over there only. Now if I do remove BP2 filter, I would enable the disable over here. You would see that port is going to be recovered automatically. You can see it's being unblocking for every VLANs. So it is not again related to your particularly to the VLAN. It's applied on every VLANs particularly, because you don't create a loop specifically on a VLAN basis until unless that device is a part of that very VLANs. Make sense, guys? Any questions? Now that brings me to the next topic. Next topic is UDLT. So what is ultimately a UDLT? When we talked about loop guard, I was more precisely telling that was basically for layer 2 loops because we were taking all sort of decisions basically on a spanning tree basis. But the loops that you can get, it's not maybe due to only due to spanning tree. Maybe you can even get that kind of conditions if your physical cables are wrong. So that's so called as your layer 1 loops is faulty. And in that kind of conditions, we would be using the feature called as UDLT. Now, again, if I'll talk about UDL, it's not going to be very different. It is moreover like it's going to be very similar, whatever the approach that we have got with the loop guard. Like ultimately, we were synchronizing what? We were synchronizing BPDUs to understand what VLAN you do have and what VLAN I do have. Similarly, UDLT will be also going to do the same thing. Only the thing is that they will be having a new set of packet, or you can tell it's a new set of frame between the switches that will be there, and this frame is going to talk to each other and they are going to form the neighborships. So if we do have a one side of flow of traffic, I would be taking any kind of decisions. But if there's a bi-directional flow, then it is good. So how we will come to how we will come across with this kind of understanding? Only when we are sending hellos between each other. So it's more of a like a routing protocol that we're enabling, just from the neighborship wise that I'm trying to relate the things. But it is ultimately is going to send and receive the loop guard packets, or you can tell frames between each other to understand that whether I'm available or not. So usually UDLTs are being enabled in two methods. One is basic enable method and one is basically aggressive method. But ultimately these both methods are going to be very similar. It's not going to be much different between them. So usually how we enable it, and usually we can't really do these things unless we don't have the L1 kind of problems. Now there is other way we can actually do the MAC filtering. We can use the frame destination, whatever the frame destination that they are using, we can block it through a MAC ACL. That is also one of the possibility by which we can simulate it, but I have tested it sometime, it doesn't work a lot. So what we will try to do, we will try to see how the UDLT is going to be implemented into the devices. So when we talk about UDLT particularly, that would be the last feature from the security wise which we will be talking about. UDLT, it is basically applied where? Again, it's being applied on interface basis and it must be implemented everywhere, every ports. Every ports. What it does, it saves from L1 loops. What it will do, it will put that port into the error disable state. And how it get recovers, there's a two methods to recover it. Again, you can do shut and no shut. You can do the automatic recovery mechanisms also, and there's one specifically UDLT related recovery mechanism. We'll talk about it. So if I wish to implement it between the devices over here,
छोटा लाना कहाँ है? कहाँ?
कहाँ तुम्हें तो लेके घूमते रहते हो?
हम नहीं रखते, हम नहीं रखते। दाढ़ी वाड़ी काटे हो गए ना?
नहीं रही हमने।
नहीं।
वहाँ देख बैठ। अरे अच्छा तो लगा। अच्छा लगा।
हाँ तो बोली तो बनाना है।
नहीं रे अच्छा बोल रहा। Okay guys, so let's implement it between VDC number 7 and VDC number 8. This one. So if I'll come back to VDC 7 and VDC 8, the first thing that you have to do, we have to enable the feature for it. So we have to write on feature UDLD. Okay, similarly we have to enable the UDLD features on VDC 8. And now you have to go to interface basis Ethernet 3/13 to 14, and we would be telling it's a UDLD what process you want to enable. It's an aggressive method or it's just a basic enable methods. So usually aggressive methods is basically for the fiber interfaces, enable is for the non-fiber interfaces. But I do see that both can be implemented. There's not much differences on the Ethernet cables that you were going to say. If I do go with aggressive method, just you have to enable it over here, and similarly we'll be doing that things on VDC 8 side. So go to interface Ethernet 3/15 to 16. We'll write on UDLD aggressive, done. And the thing that you have to verify is the UDLD neighborships. So if I see show UDLD neighbors, you'll see that we have the bidirectional flow from this particular port. So you have to enable the process from both the sides. Now if there is any kind of physical problem, you would be seeing that there would be a unidirectional flow, and in that condition the port will be put into the error disable state. So in that condition you have to basically check your SFPs, your cables, how they are working, get it replaced, and then try to check the UDLD once again. Now in some of the process, like when we will talk about in VPCs, at some time it will be mandatory to write down that things like it's the best practices, but sometime UDLD is not being expected, and even Cisco tells that you need not to enable those things. It can even cause some problems. So there are some sort of details that you should be aware about when it comes to the some another protocols implementations also, and in that conditions make sure you don't enable, or sometime you have to enable it. Now there could be one another recovery mechanism that you can also enable, that is particularly UDLD based only, like that is UDLD resets. So when you apply it, it's basically going to reset all the ports of your UDLD enabled only. It's not going to do any tasking on the non-UDLD ports. So this would be also one of the way by which you can reset the ports. It's moreover like for the recovery process. So any question guys up to this moment? All right, if there's any questions. So that was all about from this STP security side. Now one topic that I think I have left from the last class was the port profiles, how to create the port profiles and how we can implement it. So that would be our last task for today, and when we will meet on Monday, we'll get started with the redundancies, more on spanning tree, how we achieve it, and we will get started with the topic of port channels and VPCs topics. So the major show is going to start from Monday, where the major implementations of the Nexus will come into the pictures, but this is moreover a features that I was getting revised for you guys so that you can understand the features very well, like from the deep dive side. So the last one that I'm going to talk about is the port profile, which we talked yesterday. So it's moreover like a template features which we can use like a common configurations, and you can implement it multiple times on interface by interface basis. So if let it be, if I do have any configurations like on VDC number 7, let me go to VDC number 7, and if I go and write down port profile, and you need to mention the types. So for what type of interfaces you want to create the port profile. So nowadays you do have some new inclusions also, like interface BDI and pseudo wire, which is basically used for your VPLS and the atom features, and tunnel traffic engineering, which is basically for traffic engineering in the MPLS. But moreover, we would be using a lot on Ethernet side, like how to create a port profile for Ethernet, telling about some sort of common configurations. So let it be, I do have access port for VLAN number 10, and you need to write on a multiple set of configurations for it. Like I want to write on switch port, it must be switch port mode access, switch port access for VLAN number 10. Then I'm going to write on spanning tree, it's going to be port type edge that I have to mention, as well as I want to enable spanning tree BPDU filter with it, enable, and even I want to enable BPDU guard with it. So it's just the common configurations. So it's again a similar approach you would see in ACI also that we are going to see. In spite of like just not writing interface, we'll be seeing that there will be switch profiles, there will be VLAN pools, and there will be domains which we will be calling with each other. Now from a programming world, we'll be telling that some functions that we are creating which we'll be calling with the identifier or the function names when we will go to the interfaces. So now if I have to implement this configuration in multiple interfaces, like if I go to interface /15 to 16, okay, and if I have to implement it, I will just write on inherit the port profile and the port profile name, which was access VLAN 10. So all this configuration which we have written just now will be implemented over there. But one thing that he's telling that you have to enable the state enable. So you have to go to port profile, do state, which we have missed, state enabled. And then you can go down. I think that has been implemented again, but let me double sure on it. I'll go and implement the inherit port profiles. Done. So usually these port profiles are updating port profiles. So if you update it, it will be implemented even to the interfaces which has already called that very functions. So be sure about it, and even these things will again come up from the policies wise when we will come to the UCS also. So you can create multiple set of rules. You can apply that set of rules to an interface, or maybe to server side, or maybe to the switches itself. But the way that we'll be calling this kind of things will be profiles only. So guys, any questions from the layer 2 sections, from the basic side? What is VLAN, all those things? So I'm putting the balls to you, like if you do have any questions.